You're listening to episode 7 of Angel Insights, brought to you by SyndicateRoom. And I am so thrilled to welcome an incredible guest to today's show, Philip Wilkinson. Philip is a serial web entrepreneur, angel investor, and explorer of new world-changing ideas. Philip's entrepreneurial career began when he was 21 years old by building the UK's first ever price comparison site, Shop Genie. After securing £150,000 in angel money, Shop Genie merged with the French company Quelcu in 2000. Quelcu was eventually sold to Yahoo in 2004 for a staggering $340 million. Since then, Philip has co-founded a venture business that invested in and grew businesses such as BroadGenie, a broadband and mobile comparison site, CrowdStorm, and Kopi, a coffee subscription club. If that wasn't enough, Philip was also a co-founder and product director of a high-end group buying site called Quinoa.com, which secured funding from the likes of Index Ventures back in 2010. Quinoa eventually sold to Time Out. Phil's investment portfolio includes the likes of Instacart, Thread, Uncover, and many more, which can be found at www.philwilkinson.co. So without further ado, it's time to meet the man himself. It's Philip Wilkinson. Philip, welcome to Angel Insights. Now, I'd love to start off by hearing, how did you get started in angel investing?
I guess I come from a background of being an entrepreneur first for about sort of 15 years. And angel investing was always on the horizon, but never quite found the time. And after recently selling one of my businesses, I decided it might be a good time to get back into it. And mostly it was driven by a few factors, right? So one was you wanted to kind of diversify my portfolio. You know, that we all have there's a bit of cash lying around, economy not doing, amazingly well. It's just sitting there, not really doing a lot. So there was a driver for me to want to put a portion of that, a portion that I could possibly lose, of course, into something that's quite exciting and might have good returns. So just to make the portfolio a little bit different of my investments. And also, I guess, coming from that kind of that background, you always want to build lots and lots of businesses, but you never have the time, right? So I always said to friends that I'd love it if I could have like 8 brothers, right, or sisters, and I could give each of them one of my ideas, and they could all go away and build a business, and that would be great, and I could control it, right? And I'd be like the older brother, and they're all building these great things that I want them to build, right? And so in the absence of that, and I'm actually an only child, so I'm completely away from that. The best way is like through angel investing, where you can team up effectively with entrepreneurs and great teams, and in ideas that you kind of believe in anyway, and you would probably do yourself if you had the time, but instead you're giving cash, and that's kind of like that's my way of being involved. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the two drivers really, and also because you get to kind of meet these really great individuals as well. Seeing these teams and watching them build something is actually good, and you get to meet them and the investors and see their journey. And I think all of that together makes it quite an exciting thing to do.
And then picking up on a few points there, you mentioned about cash lying around and using
I don't know. Makes it
just lying in the cupboard.
But
what you said about a return there and an exciting return, what would you consider an exciting return? What do you look for? Is it kind of a double your money, or is it a 20x?
Probably not losing it is quite exciting. Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Because you want to be really optimistic and think, oh my god, this could be amazing. This could be like 100 times. And there's a part of you that has that, and then you kind of have to get back to reality, and you kind of go, well, to be fair, in any other investment, you would be happy, let's say with the stock market, at like 8% a year would be good, right? So as long as it kind of equals that and maybe beats it, you're quite happy, because you get the return of like a stock market, but all the extras that go alongside it. So, a 3 times return on an investment over like 3 or 4 years does that quite well. So I think everyone looks at it like, I'm really happy if I don't lose cash, number one. If it gives me 3 to 5 times, I'm really, really good, and that helps with the portfolio. And you know what? We can have a bit of fun over some drinks and pretend it's 100, but, at some point we come back to reality. Right?
And then you mentioned also about having, lots of different ideas and giving it to one of your, brothers per se.
Adopted brothers, yeah.
What involvement then do you have with those companies? You said they were your potentially ideas. Do you take an active everyday involvement, or do you kind of offer a back?
It can't be every day, unfortunately. I mean, I kind of like to be involved. I don't like to just put money into something, and I think it's important because if you're a value-add investor, which I hopefully like to be, you want those that need you in a way that can extract some value from you somehow. And each involvement with each company is just different because it depends on the entrepreneurs and the team. I mean, I've got 2 investments where they don't really ask for any help at all, and even though I push them a bit, but they never really come to me much, and so it's a bit of a struggle for me to kind of give some kind of added value.
Does that worry you sometimes?
Yeah, not really. I mean, yes and no. I mean, if I push a lot, I get to see them and we have a proper chat. But often it's because they know what they need to do, right? And they kind of, they've got things they need to be getting on with, and perhaps they've got the contacts they need. So it's, as long as they're on track and they're doing what they're supposed to do, I'm less worried. You'd be more worried about companies that you feel like they don't know where they're going and they still don't want to ask for help. Because the best entrepreneurs are the ones who know they always need help. I mean, even though I've been doing it for a while, I'd be stupid to realize that, I always don't, I do need help all the time still, right? Other people can still do things better. So, so going back to the point, it does vary between individuals. I mean, sometimes I'll introduce them to kind of potentially other investors if they're doing another round. Some biz dev stuff, the contacts I've built, if I can give them an introduction to speed up some of the process. Sometimes the best times I prefer when I'm sitting down and doing like a 2-hour workshop sometimes with them, and we could discuss anything from growth strategy to what they're doing on the product, and I kind of enjoy those the most, as opposed to, hey, what's going on, can you give me an update, kind of thing.
Yeah. And then you also said about investing in ideas, which kind of leads to the question, at what stage do you like to invest? Is it in the idea creation phase, or do you like a product?
It's a little bit mixed. I always like pre-Series A. The thing that frustrates me the most is where someone comes to me with a great idea, and then they go, yeah, but we've already had 2 rounds of funding, and we got 22 investors on board. And I'm like, well, what, why are you coming to me now? Right? That's, I've probably lost the real opportunity here to be involved at something, an early enough stage. So I think my deal flow a lot has been someone who's had the idea and they've built a bit of a team. They've probably built a little bit of a product to kind of prove it. And now they're ready for like either their first stage, or they've raised a little bit from like friends and family and they're ready for the next stage, right? So they've only got like between 0 and 30 grand investment. They're kind of the best ones I like to go for. But there are some, I mean, we mentioned, I'm a VP now at a company called Entrepreneur First, and they basically take like 90 individuals every year, just straight out of university or from PhDs. And so instead of going to the city and the bank, come and do a startup. And so they're like, they don't really even have an idea, right? They don't even have a team. And often the 6-month process is come and meet some founders. We'll guide you about how to validate your ideas, and then you've got another 3 months where we give you a little bit of cash, and you will then try and make a business and before you pitch to investors. And so I'm really involved at that bit. And to me, I would even put money into some of those right now because they are still validating their idea, but the team and the idea looks so strong that you just think, this is going to be really good.
And do you have to have any technical experience or skills to join Entrepreneur First?
Yeah, generally, it's mainly their thesis that a lot of the great businesses now where there's a technological advantage, right? Where you're following a trend, and often, there's a big trend like machine learning and big data, for example, that solves problems that couldn't be done before. I mean, I noticed with SyndicateRoom, they had one about CCTV cameras, right? Being able to analyze the footage and see, what's going on that people would take ages to do. Yeah, and you look at it, and one of my criteria is what can be done now that couldn't be done like 5 years ago because technology is different, right? And mobile is a huge bit of that too. It's also, what can be done like that mobile has now made easier. And there are businesses that have been done in the past that failed because it wasn't the right time or the technology wasn't there. So technology, I think, now plays a really key role, and we're at a point now where it's so much cheaper. Everyone's learning it. The skills are coming out from all these universities. There's so much investment and time into it that if you look around now, the best businesses are the ones with some really deep technology involved.
And how did you kind of handle the deal sourcing aspect of investing? Do you kind of actively go to accelerator demo days, or do you do referrals? What's your kind of deal sourcing like?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of the most important things because there's so many startups around.
Well, that's it. It's very tough.
think it's hard for anyone to get deal flow at all, right? Because there's always someone either contacts you out of the blue, or you hear other people talking about it, or you're in like a co-working space and there's like 50 of them, and you said all these accelerator groups. So the trick for me is not getting deal flow. The trick is making sure you get quality deal flow, right? Almost like there's a pre-filter there. And, you see a lot of people go through accelerators and stuff. And it's, if you can kind of go and 20 people pitch, you might see one you like, right? If that. And I think it's just the nature of where things are, where anybody think, they want to build a startup now, and some of them just go through the motions of it sounds a bit fun. It's like making a movie. I'll give it a go, and you got to. It's true.
Wait until the late nights.
Yeah, it's like anyone thinks they could be a film director or sing, right? And so you kind of, if you're given the tools, you'll go and have a go. And I think a lot of people follow startups the same way. So there's a lot of noise in the deal flow in the early stage stuff, and the trick is to pre-filter it. And the best way to do that is actually referrals from trusted people, right? So for me, I'm kind of the best deal flow I get is from, there's like a group of us, like 15 of us, who we're all entrepreneurs, right? We're all on our like second, third businesses, and so we know what it's like to build a business, and we hope we know what an entrepreneur looks like, right? What a good one looks like. So we kind of share deal flow because we're all from different backgrounds. We've got some people from SaaS. I'm in like B2C e-commerce. We've got some people from gaming, some in mobile development, enterprise, you name it. And so we share deals because people come to them for different things. They're like, oh, you're the expert in SaaS. I want to speak to you. They share it amongst the group. We all chat about it. We all have a diverse background, so we can bring different opinions to the table. And then from there, you normally find there's 2 or 3 of you who then want to put money in. So it's either things like that or other kind of angel groups that, again, from the individuals I trust who kind of bring deal flow to me. And if you ask lots of other angel investors, they'll tell you that the best ones are referrals because it helps you pre-filter a lot of that noise. But it doesn't mean they're the only source. Someone could come out of the blue and it could be the next thing.
So would you say then sector knowledge is the most important characteristic that you can have in a co-investor?
Yes, I would, because I like to think, if it's an e-commerce B2C thing, I've got a lot of sector knowledge there that I can bring to the table, and I can dissect it very quickly, right? I mean, within 10 minutes, I know whether they're onto something in that space. But bring me a SaaS business, I've got no clue. Right? I don't know what that looks like. I can read.
But someone in your investment group might.
But someone investment group has built a very successful SaaS business, for example, and sold it, and now gone and joined a VC. So they're like the go-to guy, right? And we're like, I can do with e-commerce businesses, he does with SaaS businesses. And within 10 minutes, he can say, yeah, they're onto something or they're not. And I think that's going back to time again, isn't it? And filtering. It's, we don't always have time to sit down and look at this every single day. It's not our full-time jobs as angels. So having someone who can look at that from that type of background is very, very important. Yeah.
And then what metrics do you really kind of hone in on when you're analysing whether a startup is investable or not?
It's quite hard in the early days because there's no real big metrics, right? And especially the quantifiable stuff. The first and foremost is like, is it a really interesting market, right? Do we think there's an opportunity there? Or as we mentioned with technology, is there something that they're bringing to the table now that couldn't be done before? Because often there's no massively new ideas, right? There's always, it's things go in patterns.
Incremental improvements.
Yeah, incremental improvements, or you have an idea that you think no one else has done, but 5 people are actually working on it already. You just... Yeah. But there's no original ideas.
Don't mean to crush your future.
Yeah, maybe, or you crush them. Who knows, right? So you kind of you want to build on that. So you look at the opportunity and say, do they have technology that's a little bit different? Is it exciting, right? Do you believe in what they're saying, and could you have fun seeing them build it? Right, that's number one thing, and then it's about the team. And everyone kind of says it, but it's really true. I've seen some really interesting ideas, but the team was awful, right? I mean, they didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't really have the background for it. You could see it manifesting in the product they were building that wasn't great quality. So you're kind of looking for, do they have that real drive and ambition that makes a great, entrepreneur when things go bad, which they always do often, right?
Yeah.
And have they got like that diverse team? But mostly, can they sell it, right? Because can they sell it to you as an investor and get you excited? Because if they can sell it to other companies and get them excited, and they can sell it to other team members who join them. So do they have that kind of charisma and that real drive? And then can they bring experts around them to help? Because we talked about advice as well. blatantly will not take your advice, and you can see it because they argue aggressively with you, and that's sometimes quite good. But the ones that go, I'm not quite sure about that, I'll take your point, I'll have a look into it, but I'll let you know, as opposed to the ones that say, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm going to do it my way, right? And you can start to see what's a good one and what, someone you might want to work with. And then thirdly, you do kind of look at the metrics then, but the metrics are mostly around what's your first 12 months going to look like, because you really don't know beyond that point. You're guessing and just playing around with ratios in a spreadsheet, right? I think if you ask most entrepreneurs, they're like month 13.
5-year plans don't plan out.
Month 13 is basically I find a cell and I times it by some ratio number I've made up, right? And I'll duplicate that across all the cells for the next 2 years, right? So you're like, you know what? I know you're 12 months. You're pretty much got in your head. But do you have lots of levers here you can pull? Like, how are you going to make cash from this what revenue stream, and you're going to pull this lever over here, like how you acquire the customers. Do you kind of have a feel for that? And if so, are they realistic? And so you kind of just combine those. Exciting market opportunity. There's some technology there. The team's great, and they kind of got a rough idea of the next 12 months, and it looks right.
And then going back to kind of the accelerator and the products of accelerator being the startups, do you find that the valuations are slightly skewed when they're coming out of accelerators?
I think they're skewed across the board, right? I don't think it's just out of accelerators.
But if you get someone coming out of a prestigious accelerator, maybe a Techstars or a Seed Camp, is it a particularly higher valuation than if they were just an independent startup?
Sometimes, yeah. It's the clever ones understand that funding's a story, right? And that you're kind of building chapters of a book. The ones that come out with really hyped premiums because they think the brand of the accelerator, or they're second time entrepreneurs and they want to raise the stakes, or the worst kind, which is everybody else has valued themselves at this, so I'm going to do it too, right? You're kind of like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of warning sign there because they're not realistic. The clever ones, and often when they come out of accelerators, they think this through because they've kind of been coached about it, is if you raise too much money at too high a valuation too soon, while that's exciting and you get a lot of money and you feel like you're doing well because your company's worth a lot, you often find yourself in a hole about a year later.
Well,
because what
down
you've got to,
round, isn't it?
It's kind of a down round, or you'll just struggle to raise cash unless you follow through that aggressive trajectory. Because raising at a really high valuation is almost saying, I've got 12 months now where I'm going to grow so fast, it's unbelievable, right? You're going to see us just, everyone's going to eat our dust as we disappear. And you're like, well, that's fine if you can do that. But if you're not, and you're going to go quite slowly, and then in 12 months' time, you're now need to raise at probably 3-4 times your original valuation, right? You're often going to go to like either very, very experienced angels or Series A kind of like VCs who are going to dive into your figures with so much detail you've never seen it before. And they want 3-4 times valuation. So they're going to look and say, oh, well, what makes you think you're worth this now, right? What have you done in 12 months that now make you worth this really high valuation? And so the companies that don't understand that often find themselves struggling to raise that final round. And so that's when you see things like down rounds or bridge loans or, stuff to kind of try and give them a bit more time. And the best ones, even whether they come out accelerators or not, right, they understand that if we just raise just enough money what we need, but gives us 12 to 16 months runway with some realistic growth here, because we know we want to raise this amount of money next once we've proven this, right? And they're already thinking that 12 months ahead, and they're the ones you want to be involved with. And as an investor, you're always looking for that. You think, someone says, I want you to invest in my company now. I've just come on accelerator. We're 30 million valuation. You're like, there's no way on earth you're going to be 120 million in 12 months. And I don't want to be involved in that process.
So how do you determine personally then when investing a startup's valuation?
Valuation is such a no one has an answer to it, right? Because there isn't one, and it's
it's like the cloud.
Yeah, I always start. Putting my entrepreneur hat on, I always start with like how much money I need first, right? So, and that's the first question you ask people. It's like, well, what? How much are you raising, and what does it do for you for the next 12 to 14 months? And they go, well, I want to grow to X and Y and Z, and I want to de-risk this. So I want to prove that we can build this, or I want to prove that the market's there and we can acquire customers for this. And to do that, I need this team, and we need 12 months because we need time to play around with some of these things. And then I need another 4 months to raise the next round if we can do it. So I need, let's say you need $500,000 for that. And you're like, okay. And then as an entrepreneur, you don't want to give too much away from your company, so you kind of vary between 15 and 25%, because any more than that's just unrealistic in the first round, because you can have to give more away in later rounds. And 15% is probably the limit. If you're an experienced entrepreneur and you've got a bit of a background, you can probably get away with that. Otherwise, 25 is kind of seen as the norm. So then it's just a mass equation. I need £500,000 of cash. I only want to give away 20% of my company, right? So I'm worth 2.5 million pre-money.
And then I'd love to dive into a quickfire round now.
Yeah. Like a quiz, 20 questions.
Like a quiz, 20 questions, exactly.
Is there a prize?
We'll see how you answer the questions.
Okay.
The best angel investing resource, be it a book, a podcast, a blog.
I listen a lot to Jason Calacanis' stuff.
Yeah, brilliant guy. Love Jason.
Yeah, he's a brilliant guy. Some people, didn't quite like him, and I kind of got to know him. I've been listening to his stuff and reading his stuff for 5-6 years now, and he's such a smart guy. And he does this book called This Week in Startups.
Absolutely, yeah, no.
Yeah, you know the one, and
I
I love that, not because he gets really great entrepreneurs on and they really dig into the story. And Jason has this real way of just asking the right questions.
he really just asks what everyone else is thinking, doesn't he?
He does, and they answer him, right? Because he says it in such a nice way. So he gets into the entrepreneurs, but then he sometimes talks to other investors that he knows well, or he sometimes puts his investor opinion on.
Yeah.
And
the round table is great.
Yeah, and I found that the most useful, because understanding how he thinks about investments and knowing that he's really successful and he's a really smart guy kind of makes me think and start to think the same way. So, without a doubt, I just put that on my iPhone and listen to that on the way to work every day. That's kind of what I do.
And then how do you deal with lost investment, one that passes you by?
After the crying and the beer, yeah?
Yeah. Absolutely. Years of heartbreaking counselling.
The secret someone told me is to think of every investment you make in a startup as a lost investment from the first day you do it. Right? So if you have that approach, you've already thought of the worst case scenario and you've already digested it. So I've got, 12 investments now, and I treat them all as if they're gone, as if I will not get that money back again. And so when they do go wrong, and a few of them often will be, then it's like, well, I was expecting that anyway, right? I've already written you off, so it doesn't matter. And that's been the way to do it, because it's such a risky thing with potentially high rewards, and you are going to lose some. And everyone talks about 1 to 3 might do well and offset your portfolio, but you know what? They might all fail. And if you're not prepared for that, I think you're gonna set yourself up for a big fall. So I just treat them all as lost. Right?
This isn't one of the quick fire, but I'm too intrigued now. You look at your 12 questions, your 12 investments. Sorry, what do you think the success rate will be? Looking now, if you were to say 1,
my
3,
portfolio now, I think there's already one doing massively well. Called actually, that was Instacart. I got out when it came out of Y Combinator, which is like my best performing one, and ironically the one I put the least amount of money into, which is quite annoying. But
very annoying.
Yeah, that's pretty annoying, but that's okay.
That's a great, congratulations, amazing one to have in your portfolio.
Well, we'll see. If it might go bankrupt, right? It's how I look at it, right? I have to look at it as a failure until it's a success. So there's one like that. There's 3 which are looking quite promising, but still got like another 3 years to go ahead of them. And there's like the others I don't know yet. Still too early completely. I could go either way. And there's 2 I know aren't going to make it at all. So I've put them as red in my spreadsheet already. And
So do you spend a lot of time then with them, helping them, or do you kind of write them off?
It's an interesting point, isn't it?
Because those are the ones that really need your help more than any others.
If they've got the most chance, yeah, or the ones that need the most help. And I think you look at why they're not doing well. If it's because the market's just not there, or the teams just didn't turn out to be as good as you thought it is, then there's no point spending time with it. If it's one particular thing, right? Let's say they're having a problem with getting credit, and that's something you could probably help with, and that could turn them around. I'd want to spend time with them because it's just that one thing.
Yeah.
And then part of me is also the ones that are showing the biggest trajectory. You naturally want to spend a bit more time with, right? But then again, when they're doing really well, they probably don't really need you to spend a lot of time. So it swings around a bit.
The hardest aspect of angel investing?
Honestly, transferring the cash. Right, so you do all this stuff about you get really excited with the team. You see all the documentation. You spend, you've worked out you definitely want to put money in. You've agreed it all, and there's no question it won't. You're not going to skip the cash. But when they ask you for the money, and you've got to go to your bank and click the button to transfer the cash, I always have a big wobble, and there's always some sort of mental block about I keep delaying it and delaying.
What's your average ticket?
Average ticket varies from like 10 to 25 grand, something like that.
Yeah, it's quite a big button to press, really, isn't it? I mean,
it's just when you see it, you've entered it into the bank, and you're just about to press that button. And
that's a lot of zeros.
I know I'm doing this. This isn't a surprise, Phil. Why don't you just click the button? I'm like, I could do it tomorrow.
My wife is going to kill me.
Yeah, my wife wanted a new kitchen. What am I going to do now?
Gonna have to wait till next year. And then the most recent investment you've made and why you said yes.
The most recent is, I think, Uncover. They're almost like, Hotel Tonight, that mobile app for the last hotels. They do the same for top restaurants.
Oh, fantastic.
And I actually, weirdly enough, found them because I sometimes watch these kind of talks on videos, right, when they've done presentations and people have pitched, and I kind of dig in and have that on the background while I'm doing work. And they came up on a talk randomly, and I just sat down and watched their presentation. That's really interesting because I was involved in a business that was doing deals to high-end restaurants called Quinoa, and we, so I know that really well. And now they're doing like Hotel Tonight, which I thought was a really great idea for restaurants that I know a lot about in London. And these are two guys just pitching. I'm like, oh, gee. So I just reached out to them and said, I'm really keen. I think I can bring a lot in my background. And we met up, and after a while, I liked the team, they're clever guys, and I thought, yeah, let's put some money in. And I put that in because, back to what I said, right? It was, even though it came out of nowhere and I had no referral from it, and in fact, the other angel investors I pitched it around didn't really want to put money into it. So I actually went against all of that stuff I said earlier on. Right? But the guys are really smart, and then the business...
this was your marketplace, wasn't it? This was your area.
It was a market, yeah, exactly. Something I knew a lot about. And so...
so a SaaS guy may not
said, no, they didn't have the background. Because I did... It kind of made sense for me, and I dissected it relatively quickly. And again, I don't know, they're doing really well so far, and they're being featured by Apple in, as best new app like 5 times in a row now. But that was quite unexpected because that just came out of the blue. And sometimes it's just about a feeling, right? Like an entrepreneur when you're building a business, sometimes people are saying no, and you just get on with it because it's there. And sometimes it's just the same with angel investing. You're like, I'm going against everything I thought I should be doing here. No one else is that keen. But there's something I really like about it. And I wake up a week later and go, I still want to do this. So you just, you go ahead and just press the button.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on the show, Philip. I really have absolutely loved chatting with you. Thank you so much.
No problem, Harry.
What an incredible interview with Philip, and I'm sure you'll join me in saying a huge thank you to Philip for giving up his time to join us on the show. And as always, there will be a special accompanying article that can be found on the SyndicateRoom website at www.syndicateroom.com, and we'd love it if you followed us on Twitter at SyndicateRoom. We would also just like to remind you that whenever you invest in early stage ventures, your capital is at risk, so take the time to do your due diligence, and should you decide to invest, never invest more than you can afford to lose or more than your wife would like to spend on a kitchen. Thank you so much again for listening to today's show, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.